All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Chris Wong, Head of Developer Relations here at Mapbox. I'm your MC for this session. This session is getting started with Mapbox GL JS. Before we get started, a few logistical notes. All of our build sessions are recorded and will be available to view after the event. We will be inviting live questions from our guests. To participate, please submit questions through the Zoom Q&A feature. Captions are available in multiple languages. To enable that, please use the Captions button at the bottom of your screen. And you can discover all the build sessions available through the week in our Zoom event lobby. That's about it for logistical notes from me. So I'm excited to welcome Andrew Sepic, our presenter, to the stage, who will take it from here. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to getting started with Mapbox GL JS. Let me just get my slides up here. All right. Welcome. My name is Andrew Sepic. I am a front-end engineer here with developer relations team at Mapbox. My core area of ownership is our documentation platform and our developer tools. And I've been using Mapbox GL JS for about 5 years now. Really excited to be able to talk to you about it. It's kind of our flagship product and is a great way to be introduced to Mapbox, products overall. Okay, so let's get going here. Session will be recorded. We've got captions available in all our languages. You can, Chris went over this. Let's get going to our real slides. All right, what is Mapbox GL JS? So it's a client-side JavaScript library for building web apps, web maps, and web applications with Mapbox Maps. So there's huge surface area of what you can do with GLJS, but you need to think of it as, if you're building maps for the web, you're going to be using Mapbox GLJS. And there's so many things you can do with it, but we can visualize and animate geographic data. We can query and filter features on our map. We can place our own data layers into a Mapbox style. We can style that and display custom data visualizations on a map. We can add markers, pop-ups, and all sorts of interactivity to our map. This is a little bit of an example code snippet that you can find at this link here. We've got 120 different GLJS examples that easily allow you to copy paste code and get started with them. So they are a great reference. If you haven't looked at our examples before, there's so much to look at, but here's an example of 3D terrain being rendered and sort of a camera animation rotating. All right, so what we're going to do today, we're going to do a live demo of a map for burger lovers. So if you haven't had lunch yet, well, you might be hungry by the time this session's done. We're going to cover how to add a Mapbox map to an HTML page. We're going to add GeoJSON source data to our map, and then we're going to style it with a simple circle layer. We are going to use user interactions via the Add Interaction API and via marker and pop-up classes to add custom markers and pop-ups to our app. We're also going to animate the map with fly to events. And then we're going to finish with adding search functionality to our map, where we can search and fly to different locations on the map. Just a quick note. This session is going to be focused on implementing GLJS with vanilla JavaScript. We have another session on Wednesday at 1 o'clock on how to use GLJS in React. It's a JavaScript framework. You can integrate it into all the popular modern JavaScript front-end frameworks, but we're just going to be talking about vanilla JavaScript today. You can check out some other sessions this week to use it in React or in other contexts. Okay, so let's start with a little demo. We've got a simple passion project I whipped up in 24 hours last year was a burger map. So Local Culture Magazine has a restaurant week, and they have a listing of all the locations in Vermont that have burger specials for this week. So here's the burger week 2024 restaurant map. This map has custom data mapped onto it. I'm using the Mapbox standard style. I've customized the style to change the light preset to night and the theme to monochrome. And then I've got these custom little marker icons. So these marker icons are a PNG icon meant to go along with the brand of a Burger Week. And then if I click on there, I've got the name of the restaurant, Vermont Pub and Brewery, the burgers they're offering, the Mediterranean in this case, and then a link to more information about that. I've got listings all over the state, and I can look at each of these. And we've got the cowpoke burger and the skinny pancake smash burger here at 60 Lake Street. And this is just a simple map where I took some GeoJSON data that I was able to put together from the restaurant listings page. And now I could easily see which restaurants and which burgers were closest to me rather than look at a big long listing. I put a little user interaction reset button here. When I click this, I'm flying back to the initial app state. So very simple little map with some
Andrew,
custom styling.
Andrew, real
Yeah.
quick, I think you were trying to demo the map just now, but we're still seeing the slide.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see.
Okay, looking good. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thanks for catching me, Chris. So here's the Burger Week map, everyone. I chatted through that, but essentially we've got a starting position. We're looking at data, state of Vermont. We can zoom in and we can check out these custom marker icons. These are PNGs that are produced to match the brand, and we can click on these different points and get feature property data rendered in the pop-up, and I can reset my map back to the initial starting point with a little UI here. So there's a simple map implementation using feature data I scraped together from a restaurant listings page. So how do we get going? Let's get started by things you'll need. We will need an IDE or a code editor. We'll need our Mapbox access token, which you'll get from your Mapbox account. To use Mapbox services, you need to use a access token, and you can set up an account for free. Once you open that account, you can get your access token, and we're going to use that today. And then we've got an empty HTML template that we'll start with. Here's that simple little template. If you want to code along with us, you can grab that at this gist link right here. I'll go back to that if you want to join in, but it's a simple HTML template. So give you a second to look at that. All right. Okay, so let's get going. I'm going to try to share my code window. All right, here's my starting point, and there's a few things I want to think about immediately to get GLJS into my application. So I'm going to want to import GLJS, and to do that, I want two links here in my template. I'm going to want a CSS file and for our styling and our GLJS, like our core JavaScript. So here we're importing GLJS. Next, we are going to add a little bit of stuff to our body. So we are not going to import, we're not going to do inline CSS, but we're going to link to a style sheet, and we can find that here. This style has some basic body, padding and margin to 0, and then we're setting a map div to position absolute and stretching that to the full width. So we've imported our GLJS. We have some basic styles, and now we are going to do a div of a ID of map, and then lastly, we are going to start to add our script here. So first thing we're going to want to do is we want to set our access token here. So to do that, we're going to do Mapbox GL access token. And this is where I'm going to copy my access token from my account. Very straightforward to do that once you log into your account. Here I'm going to pass in my public access token for my account. And now we're going to instantiate the new map. So we're going to do a new Mapbox GL map. And that map takes an object, and we're going to add a few properties here. So first is map, and this is actually to route to the div. So this is saying, hey, we're going to look for the ID of map to put our map container in. So it's accessing this div up here. Then we're going to do a center object, and we're going to do a zoom object of 11. So center parameter, we want to tell our map where to spawn on the globe, so where we're going to be looking. And to do that, you can find points on the map in coordinate space many different ways, but we have a helpful tool called Location Helper. And for this, I'm just going to fly the map to Burlington, Vermont, and I'm going to look at, place the marker right on the city center. And then over here, I've got a center array that I can simply copy and go back to my map. And I'm going to place that right here. Great. So I'm centering the map over Burlington, Vermont. I've got a zoom of 11, which is determining how close to the surface of the Earth I am. And that's it for now. If I open this guy in the browser, let's see what happens. Great. So here we've got our map spawning on top of Burlington. Awesome. I want to make a few more changes here for our map to do some customization that's going to be useful for us. What I'm going to do to match our map for our burger styles, I'm going to pass some configuration options into Mapbox Standard. Mapbox Standard is the standard style which I am using right now. By default, standard is configured to be a style unless you explicitly set it using a style prop here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the light preset to night and a theme of monochrome. And now we should be loading. Great. So I've got my monochrome and the night preset happening. My map is instantiating over Burlington. All right, let's take a look at the next step here. All right, we're going to add some data. So in the burger map, we were looking at burger restaurants or restaurants serving burgers. We've got a GeoJSON file here that you could access if you want to follow along. You can just pull that into next to your project. We're going to have a look at that data now. So GLJS likes to receive GeoJSON, and that is basically a modification of JSON, and it is essentially a collection of feature objects. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, after my Mapbox token, I'm going to just paste in restos for restaurants, a short form, and then I'm going to paste a bunch of that GeoJSON directly in. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at a feature collection of features. And so we've got a feature collection object, and then that has a features array. We've got a single feature here, and that is we have a type of point. So it's a single point rather than a line string or a polygon. And then we've got coordinates for that point. So this is the location of the restaurant at the coordinates. We have a properties object, which includes the name of the restaurant, Blue Northeast Kitchen, a menu, which is basically telling me the burgers that were on offer. We've got the address and then a link out. So this is the data that's embedded in our GeoJSON. So this data is what we're going to bring in and now start to render on our map. So I'm going to just close that so I don't have to look at that entire GeoJSON. And now I want to, now that I have data here, I need to add it to my map. So to do that, I want to wait till my map is loaded. And I'll do that by using a map on load event. And on the load event, I am going to add a new source. And my source is my GeoJSON data that I've just pasted in above. So the source is going to be restaurants. And the type of data is GeoJSON. And the data itself is restos, that const I declared just above. Okay, so I've added my source data. Now I want to actually see it on the map. Adding the source data doesn't mean that there are styles or a visualization aspect of that. It just means the data is there on the map. So the next thing I'm going to do is do a map add layer. And that method takes an object. We're going to add an ID for the layer, and the ID will be restaurants. The type, we're going to do a simple circle layer at this point. We're basically going to do a little circle on each of the restaurants. And the source, this is important. I'm referencing the source above here. So I'm going to reference the restaurant source just defined right here. And then we've got paint object, which is going to tell us how we want to display that data. And I'm just going to paste in here to save a little keystrokes. And what we're doing, essentially adding a circle with a radius of 6. Circle color is, let's say, pink. Circle emissive strength is allowing us to see that in a dark night scheme. And then we're adding some stroke color and stroke width. All right, so save that and let's see if we're seeing our data on the map. Perfect, just as we would like. Okay, great. So we've got our pink dots for all those restaurants in our GeoJSON data. The next part we're going to look at is, okay, there's another way to do this within the Mapbox ecosystem. You've just watched me take GeoJSON data, dump it into my source code, and pass it to the add source method. We can do that in another way using Mapbox Studio. So one of the things you can do is logging into Mapbox Studio, you can create a new style. We're going to set our default configuration, whatever you want that to look like. Then we're going to add a new layer in the top left. We'll add a custom layer and we'll select the data we want to upload. We click upload data, and then we're going to look at that same GeoJSON file that I just showed you, and we import it. The data is being processed. Now we choose that data source. We go find that data source we just added, and we switch to the Style tab. And now we can start styling those with a circle layer in this case. We can change the color, the stroke, the size, the radius. And so doing everything that we've just done here at code in runtime is also available in Mapbox Studio. We can publish that style, and then we get this custom style URL, which allows us to then add this style URL to our map class. And instead of using Mapbox standard as default, we're going to be using this custom style, which has our data already embedded in it. So that's another way we can look at getting our data into Mapbox GL JS. We can do it at runtime, like I've demonstrated, and we can do it here in Mapbox Studio. All right. Next up, we're going to start using user interactions. So we've got a map. We've got data on our map. We've styled it. We've centered where we want to focus in Vermont. Next thing we're going to do is use the Add Interactions API to handle some interactions with the map, and then we're going to add some marker and pop-up classes to the map. All right, here's an example of that add interaction, and what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be setting a feature click. We can name our interaction anything we want. In this case, I'm going to call it feature click. It's a type of interaction that's focused on a click event. We're targeting the layer that we've just added. So we want to tell it what layer we're setting up this event handler for. And then we're going to log the name of that property's, the name of that feature property. So we're actually going to be logging the name value of the particular click property in the map. All right, so let's have a go here. So we've got our map on load, we've added our source, add our layer. Now let's add that add interaction handler. So map add interaction, and we're going to call it a feature click. It's a type of click. The target is an object, and the layer ID is restaurants, because we've just defined the layer above and we've called it restaurants. And the handler is going to say console log a name equals e dot feature dot properties dot name. Okay, so let's have a look at our map. Now, when I open up the console here and find an element to click on, if I click on that, I should now have name nectars. Okay, let's click over here. Name Skinny Pancake Burlington. Great. So I've added that interaction handler and I'm logging the property's name to the console. All right, let's do two more similar interactions. These are going to be handling different types of events. I'm just going to paste these in here. What we're doing here is we are setting up a mouse enter event so that when our mouse hovers over a property, we're going to change the style of the cursor on the map to be pointer. And then when the mouse leaves that property, type mouse leave on the same layer, we're going to change our canvas, our cursor style back to plain. So what this is doing is now that we are loading our map, once we are hovering a feature, we should be able to see, oh, okay, this is a clickable feature. There's there's a change happening to my cursor. I know I can interact with this in some way. So that's those small add interactions where, changing our cursor style to a pointer as we hover over potential features on the map. All right. Okay, so next, let's start looking at pop-ups, and we're going to look at pop-ups and markers. Okay. So the pop-ups and markers are very important and like highly used feature in Mapbox GL JS. What we're going to do is we're going to set up a basic loop here to iterate over all of the restaurant features, and then we're going to add a new Mapbox marker for all of those. Okay, so little JavaScript for loop. Const feature of restos dot features. So, again, we're iterating over this list of our GeoJSON up here. And we are just going to say, hey, add a new Mapbox GL marker. And we're going to set launch lap to feature.geometry.coordinates. And we are going to add it to the map. All right, so this is just setting up a default marker, nothing special here. taking the coordinates from each of the features, setting the marker to that longitude and latitude, and then adding it to the map. All right, let's remove here the circle layer. Now we just have our source data, feature click, interaction, and then we're iterating and adding our marker. See what's happening here. Great. And we see the default map marker coming in from Mapbox. All right, so that looks great, but let's take it a step further and add a pop-up, and let's do some customization to our markers. Let's make them, give them some of that burger design flavor. Right here, we are going to make some changes here. We're going to create an element. And instead of using the default marker, this is going to be just a default element from JavaScript. Create element, and it's a div. And then we are going to set the class name on this div to marker. And now we're going to pass that in to the marker. So the marker method can either take an element to become the marker, or it can just instantiate a default one. So we're going to do that. And now we're also going to do a pop-up. And it's a new Mapbox GL pop-up. And a few objects are getting passed in here. We're going to set an offset of 25 pixels. This is going to allow us to move the marker up slightly, because our marker has an arrow that's pointing down to the location. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to say hide on move true, which is going to, it's close on move. Close on move, true. It's going to close the pop-up if the map moves. We want that. And then we're going to set the HTML to a rather large object, but it's, I'm going to paste this in here for ease of use. And so we've got a little div in here. We've got the image of the burger showing up. We've got the feature property name in an H3. We've got the burgers being rendered in a span, the address and the link all coming from our GeoJSON features. And I'm going to make a few additions to our style.css. So we cover this these new changes. So one of the things I'm going to be doing here, I'm going to add some styling for the marker itself. We're going to, put the background image of our burger. We're going to add the little arrow on the bottom, and then we're going to style our pop-up content so that looks slick. All right, so our pop-up content, our H3, our image, tag, our link, all of that's ready to go. Okay, let's see if we did this properly. Oh, not yet. Let's have a look at our console. DOM create element is not a function. Spelling error. Let's see. Here we go. Awesome. So we've got our custom markers rendered on the map. And let's see what happens when I click on one. Am I getting our pop-up show the way I expect it to? No pop-up. You know why? I haven't added it. Okay, so our marker also needs to be connected to our pop-up. Fairly straightforward method. We are going to add set pop-up here. And we are going to pass in our pop-up that we instantiated just above. All right, let's try it again. Okay, great. Grazers and Winooski, you're looking good. 4 quarters, awesome. Great, so we've got that working. Okay, let's see what other things that we're going to cover here. We've got one last section to go, animations and search. All right, so one of the great little effects that we like to add, or I like to visualize on a Mapbox map, are animations to fly to different locations. It really gives you a sense of location when, hey, if I'm looking for New York City, the map flies me there and I can kind of see that transition in digital space from one place to another. So to do that, I'm going to paste some code in here to help us visualize and show you how that's going to work. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to add a little bit of UI here into the body. This UI is telling me, okay, we've got some places to fly and a button for Chicago, Cleveland, and Burlington. Now, I have, thanks to Location Helper, thanks to our little tool to help you get locations, I have a camera options object for each of those places to fly. So Chicago, I have a center point in Chicago that I want to be looking at. I've got zoom, pitch, and bearing that I've defined in Location Helper. And I'm just pasting this information in here. So I've got my places to fly, which is the information that GLJS will want. Now I want to do a little bit of JavaScript to make this work and interact with my map. So I'm going to do const buttons equals document dot get elements by tag name button. So I'm going to get a list of buttons, and then for const button, const button of buttons, we are going to do button add event listener, click E, and we're going to do a map dot fly to places to fly button ID. And we're going to pass in the button ID, which matches the key in places to fly. Okay. So now we should, when we reload here, we should see that list of UI. Oh, let me add a little bit of styles for that so that doesn't look so bad. A little bit of CSS, and then we should be good to go. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, great. So I've got these little fly to buttons here. What's going to happen when I click to Chicago? The map is flying to the prescribed, sort of camera settings. And look, we have a burger place in Chicago. I didn't know this was here. Au Cheval fried bologna sandwich, double cheeseburger. Let's have a look here. Ooh, very nice. I think I'd like to go. Okay. Check out something else here. Let's try Cleveland. Let's see what's over there. Okay. That array is working nicely, passing in the Cleveland camera options. And then we've got Doink's Burger Joint here. This is more of a mom and pops, classic OG burger and macaroni salad. The banh mi and the sweet heat. Okay. Nice. We've got our fly to animations working. And things are looking sweet. We can find burgers from Chicago, Cleveland, and Burlington. Okay. Last thing to cover here, we've got our search SDK. So to add search to your map, it's fairly straightforward using Mapbox Search JS. This is our default web SDK. We're using search. We're essentially going to add a new script at the top to import search.js. And then we're going to add a window add event listener event, and it's going to instantiate a new search box. We're going to pass in that same access token that we're using to interact with the map to the Mapbox search instance. We're going to connect it to the map by using the map add control method and passing that search box in. And then there's some other params here, searchbox.marker and component options, which are telling search how we want it to behave. We can customize those. So I have an instance of that working. I'm just going to pull that up for you now. So we've got burger index with search. Have a look here. All right, so now we've got our search element in the top right-hand corner here. Let's say I wanted to go to Chicago. I could, search for that, and I'm getting a list of suggestions. I can click that, and I'm going to fly over to Chicago. Because we've added the marker true element, we're seeing, that marker added. Let's say I want to go to Toronto, Ontario. I can find that place easy enough and click on that, and we're going to Toronto, Ontario. So our search SDK or our Mapbox Search.js is very simple to add into GLJS and get a searchable UI with suggestions and clickable event handlers built into it. All right, awesome. That really kind of covers the basis of these talks and getting started with GLJS. Thank you for going through that with me. Happy to answer any questions you have about GLJS. Right here, you've got a QR code and a bit.ly link for just resources to go along with today's talk. The finished example code, links to all the different functions and references methods that we've used in the code today. And yeah, be happy to hear if you have questions. Yeah, let's hear it. Hope you enjoyed that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That was like such a wild ride, and I think some of the comments show that the aptly timed burger map for some time zones is making everybody hungry. So thank you. Yeah, we have a bunch of questions. There's actually 10. I don't know if we can get through them all, but we can try. I've been answering a few in the chat as if they're kind of not necessarily GLJS related, and then there's a few that were answered in the Q&A system, but there's still 10 that are open, so I'm going to jump right in. I can field some of these, so let me know how you're feeling, Andrew, about the question, or I'll chime in with some comments. So the first one is from Jeremy. It says, what resources would you recommend for someone with traditional GIS experience who wants to build developer skills for integrating maps? So courses, YouTube videos, tutorials, etc. How would you recommend they get started?
Um, Good question. I think we do have tons of learning resources on docs.mapbox.com. To get started, I would certainly have a look at some of the examples, the GLJS/example. 120 of those examples, easy to look at, easy to understand code snippets. Then once you kind of get a sense and have stood some of those up yourself, I would look at our tutorials. So our docs.mapbox.com/help has a whole bunch of tutorials to help you sort of do more complex things, longer form learning. And I would definitely spend some time there. Yeah, Chris, anything to add on that? Yeah.
Just I think if you have GIS experience, you're probably familiar with, changing data formats. So most of the tools you're using can probably export GeoJSON, and with the tools, with the skills demonstrated during this session, you should be able to start getting, data out of your traditional GIS workflows into web-based maps. So yeah, I think that would be a good place to start. But definitely check out our docs. Next question is, I'm building an online interactive map using Next.js and React. Is it recommended to use Mapbox GL JS directly or use a wrapper like React Map GL? What are the big differences there?
Yeah. It kind of depends on a few things. I think it depends on the complexity of the application you're writing. Uh, Once you learn that both React has its own state and Mapbox GLJS has its own state, you understand that those two states are distinct, and you can start to use them safely in React. Chris will have a great session on Wednesday on getting started with GLJS in React. I would, myself, I'm a bit of a purist. I would start using GLJS directly with React and Next.js, and I do that regularly. So I would choose that pattern. There are things we don't have a React wrapper that Mapbox supports. So there are open source ones that you're referencing here, and they can be great, but they also have limitations. So you might get to a place where certain methods aren't supported and you can't actually accomplish what you want to do. So you want to look at that documentation and ensure that it's supporting all the features that you will want in that end product before you decide to use a wrapper that will maybe help you move quicker and cover some ground right away, but might lead you into some dead ends.
Excellent. Next one. I'm sure you'll get to this, they said, but what restaurant data input file did you use to generate those map locations? Was it a CSV? What other data inputs can you use to generate a set of locations? So where'd you get your burger?
Good question. Yeah, getting location data is always, it kind of depends where this is coming from. In this case, it was coming from a website built by a local culture mag. So I wrote a scraping utility to get that address data, and then I sent that data to our geocoding API. So I sent the address to our geocoding API, and that returned a coordinates pair for that location for me. And then I basically scripted a way to turn that raw website data into GeoJSON. So sort of writing scripts and making API requests on the back end just to get the data that I want. And that really, every use case is different, but getting your data is always fun depending on where it's coming from.
Awesome. There was one question that showed up in the chat, but not in the official Q&A, but I figured it was a pretty important one that maybe you can touch on. Someone just said, "Is there a limit to how much data we can add?" And that's
Good question. Yeah, there is. The limits are very, very high. So I have a session on Friday, clustering with Mapbox tiling service, and that's really for huge data sets. So, millions of points of data. So, Mapbox servers and services can handle millions of points of data without, having sort of performance bottlenecks. So you can go very high, in terms of running your data locally and not using tile set process data, which is another thing we'll talk about in that session a lot. But you could run, for instance, I could put 50,000 points on a map here and have that data just sitting in a file. That will still work, but it'll be a little bit clunky. Once you start exceeding that, you really want to put your data in pre-processed tile sets so that you're only requesting data per tile, and you're not getting all the data that's potentially rendered across the entire map every time you are zooming and interacting with your map.
And I'll add to that. Andrew showed two different approaches, right? One was using markers, which is actually rendering those elements in the browser as HTML elements. You're a little more limited there because once you start having many hundreds or over 1,000 of those elements on the screen, the browser has to keep track of where all those are located and move them around. So sources and layers tend to be more performant and let you do a lot more if you have larger data. Okay, additional questions. We got about 5 minutes left. So, okay, so someone asks, if you add a data layer in Mapbox Studio, do you still have to define it as a const in JavaScript, or can you just directly use the layer for any interactions and styling?
Yeah, you don't have to define it as a const. You can access that layer by the layer will have a name in your style that you create. You need to then import that style into your map, and then you can access that layer with the appropriate layer name and the source layer for that data. So yeah, no, that's one of the great ways of putting a lot of that map related data and logic into the style, and then just shipping that and consuming that on the client.
Awesome. And okay, one more question. If my GeoJSON data is loaded into a vector tile set versus loading it at runtime, could I still highlight and select a GeoJSON feature on the map?
Yes, you can still do that. It's great. Nothing stopping you from do that. You're basically just deciding where you want that data to come from, but it's all the same. You can interact it in the same way. Yeah.
When searching, how can we have it populate an address or POI name or attribute from a custom data like burger restaurant name? Whenever I try anything other than address, it does not work correctly.
I missed the question. What is the question?
I think so sorry, in your demo you clicked a search result and then flew to it. Is that what you did?
Yes, that's what I did.
Yeah, populate an address or POI name. So there are definitely search parameters you can add to filter for points of interest or just addresses.
Yeah, there are different types. Basically, you can pass types to search box, and we can say, hey, I want to look at addresses. I want to look at, hey, I only want neighborhoods. I want towns or cities or all of the above. By default, search box will have a certain behavior, but you can look at the API reference docs for that and determine what types of data that you're looking for. And you can even bring in your own data, if you want into search.
Yeah. I would suggest trying the search box API playground. If you just search for that term, it should pop up in a search engine. It lets you actually try out all the different search parameters and see, in real time, what kind of results you would get for a certain search string. Okay, so another question: can you limit search to the already provided data? So they're trying to say, can you limit the search to the restaurants that you showed on the screen?
Um, I know we can do that with GL geocoder. Can we do it? We should be able to serve it to in web search.js.
Well, you can't actually get your search data into Mapbox's search results, but you can combine the two. Either you can either build your own service that will call Mapbox's search endpoints and then combine it with your own data on the server and then return that to your client, or you could have your client make two API calls, one to a custom data store somewhere else, or and then to Mapbox and combine them into the result list. So that would take a little extra work, but it is possible. The other thing you can do is you can actually do you can do like a local search thing if you want, because there are JavaScript packages that will do like fuzzy search results based on like a static data set.
Yeah, if we just wanted to, code in React, we could code a local search that's just searching the property names of the restaurants and doing a match against those restaurant strings. That wouldn't necessarily be using Search.js in Mapbox, but it would allow you to search for your restaurants and then fly to them when you clicked on them. Yeah.
All right. So I think that's all the time we have. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your question. You can actually jump in on our Discord server, and you might be able to ask it there, or even try on the on Reddit.com/Mapbox. We tend to be good about answering those. So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Andrew, for an awesome demonstration about getting started with Mapbox GL JS. This will conclude our session. So thanks for joining, and be sure to catch other build sessions throughout the week. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for coming, everybody.